Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Emerging Brands Podcast with Kelly Bennett. Today, I am really excited. I'm fangirling because I am interviewing someone who I listen to her podcast all the time. It's usually playing in the background as I work from home. Jessica Rubino, she is the VP of Content and Summits at New Hope Network. Jessica, it's so cool to turn the tables and get to interview you today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited. I'm such a big fan of your podcast and everything you do for brands. And I love following you on Instagram and the
Ah,
socials. And yeah, so I'm so excited. Feeling
thank
is
you. That
mutual.
just made my whole day. Like I said, I listen to your podcast all the time. I follow you on social. You are moving and shaking and doing so much for CPG, doing so much for the industry as a whole. I would love to hear first your career background of how you became the VP of Content and Summits. Can you give us a bit of the behind the scenes of your path here?
Yes, yeah, definitely. And it's so fun to be able to take a step back and like kind of think about it. I recently celebrated my 15-year anniversary at New Hope. So I've been there for a
Wow.
long time, and it's actually longer than that. It dates back like, gosh, like 17 years. I was an intern at New Hope. So New Hope looked a
Wow.
little bit different back then. We had a magazine called Delicious Living, which was a consumer magazine that was distributed through health food stores, natural products retailers. And I was an intern there and I loved it so much. I was going to school at the University of Colorado in Boulder, which is where I'm from. New Hope is based in Boulder, and I got this amazing opportunity. And many years later, I have a career there. So I was able to have lots of different positions and ultimately land in this role of VP of Content and Summit. So yeah, it was just one of those things where I felt so connected with the company, the people, the industry, of course, and really found my place early. So I feel really grateful for that. And it was a very linear, it's funny when we kind of like, I'll be in meetings and we'll kind of share our career backgrounds and people have all the, and I'm like, mine's pretty, it's New Hope on my resume.
Well, it's interesting because in this day and age, it's so rare to hear someone has had a career for that long at one company. But I think that's really cool also because it shows the connection to the brand and the ethics and the values, and also how the brand has poured into its employees and team to have that longevity. I think that speaks volumes also.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. All of that. And as you know, this industry is so exciting. There's always new things happening,
Right.
very dynamic, as is the world of events and media, which are the spaces that New Hope exists in. So all of it has led to just, it's flown by because there's always so much happening. There's never a dull moment. And I've been lucky to have lots of different roles that have allowed me to kind of grow with the industry and help hopefully shape some of the changes and things like that. So yeah, it's been great.
So cool. And you absolutely have done a lot to make an impact. I would love to hear more of VP content and summits because it sounds like a lot of hats. And also, I know New Hope Network, there's a lot of different verticals that live underneath New Hope Network. Also, the new fundraising arm, right? And helping connect the dots there. Everyone knows Expo West who listens to this podcast. I would love if you could like take us through what it all looks like and where you work within each of those.
Yes, definitely. Well, as you said, many hats. Luckily, I love hats, so we're good
Okay,
there.
good.
And yeah, it's like if you know Expo West, you know New Hope, and Expo West, of course, is the big, amazing show in Anaheim every March for the natural products industry. And New Hope does have a lot of other pieces that we have that are covering events and media. And essentially, New Hope really, its role is to make sure that the natural products industry and the CPG and retail space are prosperous and continue to stay true to their mission, but are making those right connections with one another. So really, I think about it as sort of the ultimate connector for the entire CPG ecosystem. So as we look at the different things that we offer, it's all through that lens of how can we support the different players within the natural products industry. So we have, of course, Expo West. We also have Newtopia Now, which is our
Yes.
second show. We sunsetted Expo East last year was the last year, and then we introduced Newtopia Now in August of this year. And then we have a range of media brands. So newhope.com is kind of the central hub for all news and trends and insights in the natural products industry. But as you said, there's a couple things that I don't know, maybe some of your listeners wouldn't be as familiar with. We have something called Nutrition Capital Network, and I get to work a lot on that brand now. NCN is really focused on connecting brands with investors. So investors who are looking to fund, purposeful businesses and really see what's next and put their dollars into those companies that are going to have a positive impact on the CPG industry. So we have two events, two investor meetings where companies are presenting to these investors. It's a really cool part of our business that I think is so, so important right now. And then we also have something called NBJ Summit, which is our C-suite summit for the nutrition industry. So we bring together leaders in the dietary supplements and health and wellness industry to talk about some of the big issues that they're facing as business leaders. And that's another brand that I'm able to work really closely with. That is tied to NBJ, Nutrition Business Journal, which is really market sizing and data and insights for the supplement industry. So those are just a few of the things, but hopefully it gives a sense of, all the things that New Hope is doing to support CPG and maybe some of the lesser known products.
Absolutely. And it sounds like a really cool ecosystem that I'm sure when you're working on one of those brand extensions that you just shared, it helps feed into the next. Right?
Yes.
And I love I nerd out about brand extensions and like ecosystems within a brand because it helps the workload too. When you're working on one thing, it's helping feed the other. So, what does almost a day in a life look like for you? Working on so many different projects at once. I
Oh,
just personally want to know because I also love your podcast. It's so consistent, so brilliant. Like take us a little behind the scenes. How do you manage all of that?
oh gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know. But yeah, then the podcasts are podcast The Naturalist. We, because we're doing all these different things and connecting with brands in so many ways, whether it be through the Nexty Awards, through the coverage on newhope.com, through all of our content at the shows, where like we really just wanted to create a platform where we can talk about all of that. And so The Naturalist has kind of become that. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Like I said, there's never a dull moment. And I think a lot of my role is to really figure out like, how do all of these things connect and how can we effectively, tell our story to brands, but really listen to brands and retailers and investors and understand what they need now and then connect them with the right parts of our business. And so obviously, I believe content is a really important part of that because it's educating our audiences in very critical ways so that they can do better business. But I found myself very much in this space where I'm lucky that I get to work on all these different pieces of our business and then say, okay, what does that path look like? What does that journey look like for a brand from an early stage brand, kind of trying to get up to speed on everything they need to know to succeed, all the way up to a company that may just, maybe a very established brand, but wants to better understand some of the values and purpose that this industry is so known for. So I would say day to day is helping connect the dots and doing that through, we have meetings. We have
I'm
lots of
sure.
meetings. But I get to do a lot of internal strategy work, but then a lot of external work with our audiences and being out there in the community and really listening to those needs. So, it's really fun. No 2 days look the same, which I love. So.
Which
Yeah.
sounds great for also a creative, which it sounds like you very much are a creative, strategic person and being able to connect those dots with so many different use cases. I would love to hear because you have such a unique perspective of seeing so many different perspectives from buyers, retail, to a founder, to an investor, to networks of industries. What are some strategies that you've seen brands, maybe some early stage ones or a bit more mature brands that have stood out to you, maybe recently or just over the years? Some really smart strategies that have helped launch a brand successfully.
One of the things, great question. And one of the things that I'm hearing a lot from brands now is just being very, very intentional with how they launch and who their retail partners are. I think like there was a period when people were like, oh, just get out there, get the broadest distribution you possibly can, get in as many stores as possible. And that's really changing. I think the level of strategy and intention going into the right partnerships. And that starts with funding, like making sure those investors are aligned. I was just talking to a group of brands the other day, and one of them said, it was a really challenging year because we took capital from the wrong place and it really affected our business and how we made decisions. And so there's a heightened awareness around the partnerships that you establish early in your brand's life cycle are ultimately going to affect the whole trajectory of your business. And so I think those that are most successful are saying, these types of retailers. I was just talking to Mosh the other day, and they were saying, we just have a couple of these key retailers and we know they're going to be able to tell our story effectively. They understand what we're doing and they're going to bring that vision to their customers. So, we also see that with a lot of regenerative brands, companies that
Right.
are investing in regenerative agriculture. Not every retailer is ready to kind of tell that story. And so they may not be the right retail partner for you right now. And across the board, with us working with so many purposeful companies, that's really important. I think from a funding standpoint and financial standpoint, companies, everyone's kind of talking about profitability right now over just like revenue growth. And so I think
Right.
there's a lot more awareness around that because it's sort of become this like part of our lexicon of like focus on profitability, especially in those early days. And so I'm seeing companies be really successful by looking more critically at that piece of their business. And, I think this all leads to just like people wanting to find the right connections. That's so much of what we focused on at Newtopia Now was all about connections and making sure that you're establishing them early and building those relationships early on.
When you speak about the right partners and the right partnerships, especially early on, are there some things that a founder, especially because that's primarily who listens to this podcast, can be looking for or asking, especially when they get into the room, say at Utopia Now, and they're like, okay, this is the moment I've been working towards. Any tips or tricks to help them navigate to finding that right partner?
I think it's really like building this foundation of like really listening to each other. So like one of the things that we did at Newtopia was we got retailers on the stage to talk about what they look for and how they make decisions. And so I really encouraged brands to go to all of those sessions. Like the first thing to do is listen to the retailers and see and think about, do we have what they're looking for and do they offer what we're looking for? And sometimes I think that piece gets a little lost. Like brands are trying very hard because there's so much competition, of course, to
Right.
stand out. And I think sometimes because we're moving so quickly, like and this is a universal you, like I'm guilty of it. We all are just kind of have our vision, our idea, and just like move really quickly, but don't take the time to take a step back, really listen and understand. So I think that's like kind of the first piece of it is no, yeah, it's important for you as a brand to figure out how to best tell your story, but first listen to the stories and those things that retailers and investors and others have to share so that you can decide, you can be in the driver's seat and say, is this right for me? Once you get that meeting, I mean, I think it really is like, can this partner support what I'm trying to do? And are they trying to do the same thing? So, like, back to the example of regenerative agriculture, is that a priority of this investor, this retailer to make sure we can scale this? And
Right.
so if the answer is yes, then you're both going to be successful in that partnership. If the answer is no, I think maybe you give it a little bit of time and see if it could develop and move in the right direction. So I think it's just making sure that the support and the tools are there to be mutually successful.
That is such solid advice. And I think it also speaks to the importance of knowing what your values are and knowing what your brand story is and knowing what you want to accomplish so that you can make those right decisions and find those right partners. Something that you touched upon about all the different shows and summits. How does a founder, especially in those early stages, know when they're ready to go to the show or to present at the show? I know so many founders who listen to this podcast are right on the cusp of saying, "Okay, I think I'm ready. I want to be ready, but I'm not quite sure." What advice would you share with them at that critical making those decisions?
It is such a great question, and it's something that we're really focusing on a lot at New Hope is helping to identify when the time is right, and whether that's to exhibit at Natural Products Expo West or Newtopia, or just when the time is right to start thinking about, expanded distribution. And I honestly don't think there's one clear answer. It's going to
Right.
be different for everyone. I think at a certain point, you have to take that leap. And even if you're like, oh gosh, am I ready? Am I ready? There's always going to be a little bit of that, nervousness that comes with that. But I think it's really understanding and looking at what have I done as a business and as a professional in this industry to educate myself, to learn, to get all of the information, to really take the time to look critically at your business to make sure your product truly is ready to go to market. We have our Nexty Awards and we see so many great early stage brands. And frankly, we also see some brands where they're close, but they're not there yet, whether it's like
Right.
their packaging and branding isn't quite there, the flavors or the formulation needs a little bit of work. And I think it's back to that, like you just move so fast and you're afraid to kind of change course a little bit. So I would say gathering as much information as you can from all the different pieces of the ecosystem. And we provide a lot of resources outside of the expos, through our content, through there. We have something called Business School at Expo West, where you don't have to be an exhibitor to attend that. And you can go there and really learn from experts who have been doing this a long time, connect with peers. I feel like doing that work to make sure you're connected with others who are in the same stage as you, but also others who have been through those challenges and can talk
Right.
to you about it. So I think like not operating in a silo in those early days, making sure that you are part of a community that you're learning. And I think ultimately, each brand will know when it's right for them, but it's really important to recognize that, hey, like if you're so early stage, you haven't even launched yet, you're trying to figure out like, should I be at Expo West? Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is you're not quite ready, and you'll be more successful with your trade show launch if you give it a little bit of time. So patience might be the biggest thing there.
That's a great piece of advice that is always so hard, especially when you're starting a CPG brand and you're excited and you just want to get out there. But being patient and, again, what it sounds like, being intentional and strategic and listening and then finding what is that right fit. Yeah,
Yes,
rushing into
definitely.
it.
And it's okay to make a change, like if you're like, hey, like
Yes.
this doesn't feel quite right, like really look at that and listen to that. And it will be hard and it will probably be resource intensive to make those changes, but better to do them early. And that could be a change in an investor or a change in your packaging. It could be a range of things, but do it early and don't be afraid. Just because you're pivoting doesn't mean you failed. It means you're being smart.
Absolutely. As a brand strategist myself, I work with brands who are on that cusp of, say, expanding into retail, and you have to make changes. most likely on your packaging and social and all that good stuff. And some people are really apprehensive to that, but those who do make the changes, I've seen it with my own eyes, take it to that next level. And
Yes,
that
yeah.
is so motivating too. Something that you touched upon with all of the different shows and summits, all the different resources, how's the best way for a founder to connect with New Hope Network and finding that right next step for them?
So most people, hopefully brands, will kind of have a sense of who their lead account person is at New Hope, who can really help kind of guide them through. And because we have so many different parts of the business, there's lots of different people that you may
Right.
connect with along the way. I'm always available. My team's always available to just kind of talk through, like, oh, where are you as a business? What are you looking for? And so I can be reached on LinkedIn. Or through the podcast. And then yeah, I think it's just reaching out to our team through, we have a range of New Hope contacts, which hopefully we can share, that if there's a way we
Yes,
can share those through
please.
this. And then on LinkedIn, and we'll definitely get you set up with the right people to make sure you're supported. And again, depending on where you are as a business, whether you're thinking about Newtopia Now or you just want to be more connected with our content and our newsletters, I can be a great resource for that. And I have others on the team that love connecting. Jenna Fitch is our senior director of conference and community, and she really is like the ultimate connector and can do all that work as well. So everyone, the great thing about New Hope is we have like a big team of people that just want to help make sure that we're connecting everyone in the right ways. So
Incredible. Well, Jessica, I could talk to you literally for hours. I know I have to let you go. Thank you so much for generously sharing your insights and all of the different resources that you are creating with New Hope. Thank you so much. And I really appreciated our conversation today.
I loved it. Thank you so much, Kelly. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And to everyone listening, I'll put it all in the show notes. So don't worry. And I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.